Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw Hatsune Miku, or Miku Hatsune, depending on how you want to say the name. Classic Vocaloid character. I have had so many requests for drawing this character, and it's been a while since I did one of these sort of fan art videos. So, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to begin by showing you how to draw the basic stick figure, but I'm going to do this in time-lapse, and then we'll get into more of the advanced guidelines. Alright, so you've got a sort of a basic stick figure here in place, and you don't have to worry too much, I would say, about lines like this. They will eventually be erased anyway, but you want to try to get the angle of this arm, you know, if you're trying to copy this pose that I'm doing in this video. Notice how large the head is in proportion to, say, the length of the arms, or even just the length of the torso. This is a slightly exaggerated cartoony character, so you don't want to hold yourself too much to, you know, the restrictions of true human anatomy. Now, sadly, I think I gotta get down a few more basic guidelines in time-lapse before we can slow it down and start going real-time as we get into more of the details. Alright, well, I've moved on to getting some of the lines for the clothing in place. She has these pieces of clothing on her arms that come down from around here on the upper arm and get quite wide at the bottom, so you'll want to pay attention to the width of that shape and how narrow it is at the top. Her, you know, waist here is kind of outrageously narrow, as is so often the case with anime characters. They exaggerate just to, you know, create some sort of manga ideal, I guess you could call it, and her ever short skirt coming right across here. Now, some people would have you draw the whole hips and so forth first, and then draw the skirt over it, and that's probably a better way of doing it, but I just feel like there's so much to cover in this video that I wanted to take a little shortcut and just move right onto the skirt and, you know, basically put the lines of the thighs there in place. Now, I'm going to refocus the camera, drop in a final, I promise, set of time-lapse guidelines for the eyes, the eyebrows, the mouth, and so forth. And then finally, we're going to get onto the real-time drawing lesson. Okay, so enough of the time-lapse there. My viewers have taken away the keys to my time-lapse machine, and they want me to just knock it off with the time-lapse already. So I'm going to go on to the more of the details of drawing this character, and let's just sort of get the eyes going here. Now, I noticed that different people will draw Hatsune Miku with different levels of exaggeratedly large eyes. I've gone for something that I think is kind of in the middle. I'm leaving a highlight here that will make them look shiny, and then I'm going to drop in an indication of the pupils, kind of large in this style. And I think that's probably enough of that for now. I want to start getting some of the indications of her hair in place. Now, I noticed that most of the artists who draw her will do my preferred style of having the bangs conveniently drop kind of to the sides and between the eyes so as not to obscure the eyes of the character. So that happens quite frequently. Not all the time, of course. Sometimes you want to have hair crossing in front of one eye, or maybe both eyes. Let me know how that works when you create the character whose eyes you cannot see. I'm going to put in a basic guideline here that shows me the sort of top of the hair, you know, somewhat full-bodied, but not as exaggeratedly full-bodied as you sometimes see. in manga illustrations. And maybe now I should start to draw some of the details of the clothing. I mean, there's more to be done with the hair, but let's just go ahead and move on to some of the clothing here. So I'm going to draw the collar. She does wear, most often in the illustrations that I saw, a kind of formal-looking collar, actually, sort of dress shirty collar. And later on, you're going to see that there's a very small, narrow fringe border along the edge of this collar and along many aspects of her clothing. I'm going to go ahead and put in this necktie. Another thing which I thought was sort of interesting, that this character wears a necktie. Seems rather formal to me, but it sort of makes it an interesting contrast to the other aspects of her character, you know. I'm going to have the necktie sort of cross outside as if it's being blown by a dramatic gust of wind, which I like to do. Now, I would advise you, if you want to draw Hatsune Miku, or Miku Hatsune, in a way that satisfies the die-hard fans out there, I would advise you to really pay attention to all the details of the clothing. I wanted to make sure that I got this right. So I had a close look at various illustrations, and noticed that the necktie has these two little... They almost look like tie clips down here. I must confess, I don't know this character as thoroughly as I ought to, and I can almost hear people shouting out as I do this. No, those aren't tie clips. Those are Vocaloid clipatrons, man. Get it right. So forgive me if I'm not getting the details of this, the terminology. I never get the terminology right on anything. Anyway, she has these cool sleeveless, this top is, like I said, an interesting combination of a formal-looking collar and tie, but then sleeveless so that she can rock out on the stage. And I'm going to go ahead and sort of curve. We had the very angular shoulders. I'm going to go ahead and sort of curve those out a bit. And yes, you can see a little indication of her armpit here. In previous videos, I always sort of laugh and sound uncomfortable when I say the word armpit, and everyone says, like, Crilley, what is it with you that you get so freaked out about the word armpit? But I'm embracing it, man. It doesn't freak me out anymore. So I had noticed, as everyone does, that these sort of sleeves that are detached from the actual top that she's wearing begin pretty high on the upper arm, and depending on who's illustrating it, you may see some wrinkles here that convey the fact that this is made of cloth, although presumably some futuristic digitized cloth. But you will want to pay attention to, as I said before, the width of this sleeve at the bottom. It's really almost like a cloak down here. And there is a sort of electronic plate here that has, it seems to me, virtual buttons upon it. And again, fans, let me know what this is all about. I kept thinking, I bet those are like, she can push the button and then a song comes up. Am I right about that? Or am I completely wrong? No, Crilley, that's how she orders carry-out food, man. Don't you know anything? So we get this sort of area in place, and it seems to me that if you want to go hyper detail, there's all kinds of crazy little digitized details there. But she does seem to have a tattoo, 01 up here. That would be in red ink. And I can't decide whether the second part of this video, if I want to go full color or not. I'm going to have to sort of make a decision on that. But let's go ahead and move on. Boy, this is going to be a very long video, I can tell you. There's so many details to the clothing that I could sit here and talk about each individual part of it all day and lose viewers by the second, no doubt. But let's go ahead and finish off, I guess, the distinctive characteristics of Hatsune Miku. She does have this, it looks like a pair of headphones, a sort of high-tech pair of headphones, and on one side over here is this microphone, wireless microphone, so when she's in concert she can sing without holding a mic, without the drudgery of holding a mic, a corded mic. Can you imagine? Please. Crilley. That's so 20th century. And then I think you can't see it in this drawing, but there would be another side there to the headphones. And if there is indeed a strap connecting the two, it often gets largely concealed by the hair. And then now we get myself into trouble because I have no idea what these are other than ornamental decorative objects of some kind. But it's almost like a diamond-shaped pair of thingamabobs that are up here and at her ponytails. One thing that you can do, and when I was looking at various illustrations, this gives you an opportunity to show your knowledge of perspective, so that if this one is facing rather toward you, this one can be facing a little further away, and the two of them together will help to convey a sense of three-dimensionality. I'm going to hold off on the actual pigtails that are incredibly long and can become quite a decorative element in the illustration. They will do so in my illustration as well, but I'm going to just hold off on that just because I feel like that becomes a whole can of worms, a canister of worms. I'm going to quickly draw her hand here. I don't want this to be a video about how to draw hands, even if they are Hatsune Miku hands. Or does everyone say Miku Hatsune? I get used to the Japanese. They put the last name first and the first name last. But I think maybe we've got that stuff in place. I'm trying to think in terms of, oh yeah, she does have like a sort of like a nameplate up here that I think says in tiny letters Vocaloid across the top. And otherwise there is a hem or a seam that comes down here, maybe a zipper, I suppose, that comes down, and when it reaches her waist area, that gives you an opportunity to make that seam sort of zigzag a little bit, that helps convey a sense of wrinkles there. And now I see that I am at the bottom, way at the bottom of my video frame, and I got to stop myself before I start saying, and down here you can see plainly what I'm drawing. Let's refocus the camera so that we can get down to the final details of the clothing. All right, so we're coming down to the bottom of the top. The bottom of the top. Oh, and I forgot to draw the upper part of this sleeve over here. I forgot. Come on, people. Can I be expected to remember everything? But we come down here, and we are going to have this split into two sort of triangular areas. There's so many little details to the clothing of Hatsune Miku, which I think is testament to the designers who really thought it through and clearly wanted to give her a very distinctive look. I was the same way when I was designing Talia for Brody's Ghost. I wanted this sort of one-of-a-kind design that people could, almost get into the details of it. In any case, we got that in place, and then there is a strap down here. Again, I will have to rely on the superior knowledge of my viewers to tell me, what is this strap for? What is it for? Is it a guitar strap? Does it give her powers? Does she use it to strangle her foes? But it comes across down here. Hooks, I think, underneath to something at her waist, maybe. And I'm going to erase this guideline here. And there is eventually a pattern on here that is really just triangles. And this bottom part of the skirt is going to be divided into pleats, as so often these skirts are. So I'm just going to sort of dash in a series of lines here, each sort of changing, fanning, as I like to say, out until it comes over here. Very often you want to pay attention to the fact that the lines will be more tightly packed at the edges, just because, of the perspective that you have there. And then, depending on how serious you want to get about it, some people will really get into the fact that, each one of these pleats creates a sort of triangular line or diagonal line that corresponds with the surface of that skirt. You don't have to get that hung up on it, and I think some people will even make this sort of more floppy and rounded looking down here, as if the fabric is not so. I mean, this almost looks like it's made of Teflon, corrugated steel. I saw different artists doing different things, sort of bringing their own style to, or their own interpretation to it. But of course she has to have these thigh-high, what do you call these things? Somebody help me. I don't know. I'm a guy. I don't know. Stockings? They come right up to the base of the skirt, basically. You get just a little gap there. And for the people who are really into it, you can get a series of these slightly digital-looking... what are they? Who knows? Rectanguloids that come across here. In some illustrations, very hard to see what these are. Others, they're drawn more prominently. But anyway, there's a whole series of them down here along her thigh. And maybe that brings us to the end of the costume details. I'm going to pull back so that we can draw the hair. And boy, man, what a long video this is going to be just for getting the lines in place. But definitely, we're going to have to break this into two parts so as to have a separate video on the shading. Alright, so we've refocused, and I did cheat. I drew the hand here just to get it out of the way. Cheating. I'm just cheating all over the place. But we're going to go now into drawing the basic lines of the hair. And the top part of this ponytail up here is partially obscured by her hand. I didn't do that on purpose to just save myself time, I swear. Okay, I did it on purpose to save myself time. Anyway, I'm putting a basic guideline down here for the mass of her incredibly long ponytails. And in most of the illustrations that I saw, there was sort of the main body of the hair, if I can use that word, that was filling up quite a wide area from left to right, and then we would have additional lines flowing. But before I get to that, I'm going to go ahead and do the companion ponytail over here on this side. And this may look exaggerated, but I swear pretty much everyone I saw, her ponytails are amazingly long. And that's just part of the defining characteristics of this highly original character. So you want to try to make sure that they seem similar in width. You don't have to get too hung up about that. But what I wanted to do is add a few lines in like so to add a bit of detail, give a bit of form to these two ponytails. Up here at the top, if you want to get into it, you can have them curve a little to show that they're hooking into her head. That sounds kind of graphic. They're hooking into her head, man. But I'm just adding extra lines here, and you will notice that I'm dashing these in quite quickly. I've said this before in other videos, that when you're drawing hair, it can be helpful to lay those lines in quite quickly rather than moving your pencil very slowly across the page. Now, so we've got these basic gigunga ponytails in place, and what I want to do is add just a few extra lines to sort of liven things up so that it's not just a single form there. And I thought I might even have more than one coming off here on this side. Maybe have one that comes down like so, and possibly even let's live wildly, people, and have one extra line come all the way across like that. I'm having to I have to relocate myself so as to take advantage of the pivot point of my wrist, and I'm not getting a comfortable position here so much. But that, for me, is just going to sort of help fill out the space of the illustration, make it a little more interesting. Well, I told you that my viewers had taken away the keys to my time-lapse machine, but little do they know I have a spare set of keys. Oh yeah. And I'm going to kick it into time-lapse with my trusty black Prismacolor. Where is it? I can't even find it around here. I am going to locate that black Prismacolor, and I'm going to, in time-lapse, do the final line work and then come back with some final words. Alright, well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of the Hatsune Miku how to draw video. Just the line work, and I will be back with a separate video that focuses entirely on the shading. I did want to point out, though, I had forgotten this second line here that goes across the bottom of the skirt, and a couple of other things that I snuck in there, like shading on the eyes. That's something that I hadn't put in before. But otherwise, I think you've got the basics of good line work here that you could use. I mean, you could just ink this and then color it in any, using any medium that you prefer. But if you do want to see how I would use pencil shading to finish off this illustration, please tune in next week to see part 2 of this video. But for now, let me thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books. We got Brody's Ghost, we got Miki Falls, and we've got Mastering Manga, my How to Draw manga book. And just want to add a special extra thanks to everyone who commented on my 1 million subscribers video that I did earlier in the week. Just still blown away by that milestone in and of itself, and then all of the words of encouragement that people left in the comment section. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil and this incredibly long video. Part 1 only. There's part 2 yet to come. But I do want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.